discipline is one of the biggest issues that all teachers are faced with in the classroom. Maybe just elaborate and tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure, thanks Francois. I started my career as an intermediate phase teacher, taught for a couple of years here in South Africa and then moved to Scotland.
Okay.
In fact, I taught all over the UK, taught at 74 different schools in London and discovered huge discipline problems. I came across a course called Assertive Discipline that was really an answer to my prayers. Made sense, it worked, it was positive, it brought back the joy into teaching for me, which was really important. I started using the techniques extensively in a primary school, and then I moved across to a behavior unit where I worked with extremely challenging children. During that time, I got stabbed twice. I got bitten 8 or 9 times. I got spat on every day.
Wow.
We used the techniques that we were taught extensively, and we made real progress in changing behaviors. I came back to South Africa after exhausting all my travels and decided to teach at a high school. Noticed they were having some challenges, approached the principal and said, please may I do a workshop with the staff? And you know what principals are like. If you offer them anything for free, they jump at the chance.
Absolutely.
So we did the training, and the feedback that I got from the teachers was that they loved it, but they felt it should have started with children in the primary school.
Okay.
So I started doing the training, noticed that there was a real demand and a real need for it, and resigned from my teaching post, rewrote the program in the South African context, and launched my little company, Positive Behavior Management. That was over 13 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing.
And since then, we've trained thousands of teachers in all sorts of different contexts, in private schools, in government schools, in rural schools. Teachers seem to be really craving some new techniques that work, that are easy to implement, and that are slightly different, a slightly new approach.
Definitely. It's quite fascinating. The both of us know each other, but this is the first time that I'm really getting to know your background. So knowing that you're well-traveled and that you've experienced some of the issues in Europe especially, but in your travels and interacting with teachers in South Africa, what do you find are the things that teachers normally struggle with the most when it comes to discipline?
I find that teachers really struggle to be heard. So children talk continuously while the teacher's talking. I find that teachers really struggle to give effective consequences that change behaviors. You know, a lot of South African systems, the merit-demerit system, for example, is just a record-keeping system. So we notch up a whole lot of demerits against a child, but it doesn't fix the problem in the classroom. It doesn't change the behavior. The teacher's still dealing with that behavior on a daily basis. So we need real consequences, real corrective measures that fix behaviors so that teachers can teach the wonderful lessons that they've planned.
Definitely. Teachers often feel helpless when it comes to the systems that are in the school. And I've also found that a lot of the techniques being used are more negative, and it's deconstructive. And kids often feel that when they are being disciplined, that they've done something wrong and they are the victim. Something went wrong in that case. So please explain to us, what is the difference between assertive discipline and your traditional type of discipline?
Okay, thanks. I'm glad you asked that. Assertive discipline is a positive approach. So it's underpinned by positivity. Everything you're doing in your class is aimed at rewarding the children who are making good choices, acknowledging the children. If you think about a typical class, we've got 3 groups of learners.
Okay.
So you've got a group that'll come in and sit right in front of the teacher. They are your intrinsically motivated kids. They make up about 5% of your class. You've got another group that'll sit as far away from the teacher as possible. And they are what we term your EBDs, your emotional and behavioral difficulties.
Okay.
90% of your kids fall into a group that I like to call the tourists.
Okay, I like that, the tourists.
And the
Tell us about the tourists.
Are sitting in the middle watching who's getting the most attention.
Okay.
And if you think of a typical classroom, who gets the most attention? The naughty ones.
Yeah.
Teachers know their name on the first day of school. By the end of the first week, they're calling out their names in their sleep because they've said them so many times. So the little tourists in the middle are thinking, how do I get noticed? I know, I'll do what they're doing. And they tend to join in the bad behaviors. And when you look again, 95% of the class are behaving badly.
True.
So teachers need to go in and change their focus. They need to acknowledge the children who are making good choices. And that group of children seldom get recognition.
True.
Because they're not your strong academics. They're usually not the group that are struggling academically. So they don't get any kind of academic reward. So our approach teaches teachers to go in and look for all the children who make good choices and to acknowledge them, firstly by giving lots and lots of praise. Hey, I like the way you did that. Excellent work. Good job. And then secondly, by bringing in a structured reward system. This changes the whole energy in the classroom, brings in this positivity, brings in this joy. Generally, we find that children behave better because there's this positive energy and there's this joy in the classroom. Also bring in lots of effective corrective measures.
Okay.
So it's not just a lovely, you've done well approach.
Yeah, like a hold hands and sing Kumbaya type of thing.
It's a really effective approach in that we give teachers tools to manage the challenging children. So the children who still push the boundary, even though you're using the positivity, the children who are still defiant, the children who are still resistant, they take a little bit longer to change those behaviors. So we bring in really effective corrective actions that teachers can use then and there in the classroom.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot because I know a lot of people, they tend to have these airy-fairy, high-level description of discipline, but they never come down to the practicalities. Now, I'd like to put you on the spot and tell our viewers maybe just one practical tip that they can implement in their classroom to improve their discipline.
Certainly. One of the most effective strategies that teachers really overlook that you can use anywhere, at any stage, is moving the learner to a different place in the classroom.
Okay.
So timeout or isolation or a thinking space. If you think about a problematic learner, what are they doing in the classroom? They're talking to a friend, they're poking somebody, they're doing something to disturb the general flow of the lesson.
Okay.
Now, if a teacher says to that learner, that's a reminder, it's the first time I've spoken to you, next time the learner does that, please pick up your pen and your book and come and sit over here. Have an allocated space. In your big full classes where there is no space or an extra desk, seat the learner in the doorway. Remember, timeout is not outside the classroom.
No.
We don't kick children out at all. It's against the Constitution, it's against the law. So the children are in the class where you can manage them, but they're seated at a different venue. By doing that, they can no longer talk to a friend or poke a friend or annoy a friend or disturb you in terms of managing your lesson. So that's just one example. There are hundreds of different ways that we can bring in corrective measures. And in our course, we teach teachers how to select corrective measures that they are comfortable with.
Okay.
Because you've got to own them. You've got to make sure that you feel comfortable implementing that. Is it age appropriate? Is it something you can do then and there? Most discipline systems are really technical. The child does this, you've got to write it down here, then you've got to put it in their diary, then you've got to include it in this space, and at the end of the day, the behavior doesn't change, so the teachers give up on using the system.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. I like that because the difference basically comes down to what we would have done in traditional discipline is if the kid really bugs you a lot, you tend to chase them out of the classroom or you send them to the principal and then you're just compounding the issue. That what I'm hearing from this is that instead of removing the child from the classroom, you still make them part of the lesson. You've just basically put them in a new spot, but they're still part of the lesson. I like that. So Brigitte, what can a teacher expect from your course if they enroll on it on the Eduvation Networks platform?
Teachers can expect to work through 3 different aspects.
Okay.
The first being how to become more assertive as a teacher. We discovered that lots of South African teachers fall into the 2 categories which are not really effective in terms of discipline. The one being the aggressive teacher who screams and shouts a lot. And I'm not pointing fingers at teachers. I believe teachers have become aggressive because there's not a lot of tools out there that work. Or we come across teachers who are non-assertive, who beg and plead. Please don't do that. Please sit down. Please stop eating. So teachers beg and plead. They repeat themselves over and over, which also means they're not effective in terms of managing their discipline.
Yeah.
So the first section of the course analyzes how assertive are you? Which are the areas that we need to strengthen to make you more assertive and more effective as a disciplinarian? We believe that 50% of discipline in a class stems from the teacher's behavior and the teacher's reaction. How the teacher manages that learner will determine whether or not the behavior stops or whether or not it's actually escalated.
True.
Secondly, we give teachers the possibility of the actual framework system that they can implement in their classrooms. So we build a set of rules. We look at what are effective corrective measures that teachers can use in their particular classrooms, which are age appropriate, which are effective. We look at how to record those within a split second, because teachers are so busy teaching this huge curriculum that they need the most effective, easy to use system for recording.
No, you don't want to break the flow of the lesson to go and write down a demerit.
Absolutely.
So it's an effective measure that takes a split second to use. Excellent, I like that.
And then we look at how to build a positive reinforcement system, a positive reward system, specifically for behavior. And that's often an area that's brand new to teachers, brand new to schools. They have reward systems and prize givings all for academics, but there isn't anything that acknowledges the learners who behave. And surprisingly enough, 90% of the children in our schools do behave. And with the right kind of incentive, we see that, we bring that out.
That if we change our focus to the 90% of kids that actually do good and want to be there and that behave, maybe we swing the tide and bring the 10% with them.
Indeed.
But we focus so much on the 10%, these kids who have got behavioral issues, that we tend to bring the rest down with them.
Absolutely.
So I'm feeling this coming on, that one of the teachers out there are going to ask, will this work for primary school and high school? Is it a one-size-fits-all type of solution? Does it work?
The beauty with this, Francois, is that you extract what is applicable to the age group that you teach. So we've used it extensively in nursery schools, in primary schools, in high schools. I use it with my students that I lecture. I use a number of the techniques when I train adults, when I train the teachers in workshops. So it is applicable in all those different age groups. The nice thing is you take out what is going to be relevant and suitable for your classroom. You can marry it to an existing program. So if your school's adamant that they're not prepared to change their program, we teach teachers how to operate individually, utilizing some of these techniques, and that can slot into their school's program.